Mr. President, Ernie is a listener of mine on WTKK in Boston and wishes to pose the following question. Ernie, go ahead for the President of the United States.
Thank you, Michael. Mr. President.
How are you, Ernie?
I'm good. Thank you for taking this call.
Great to talk to you.
I understand you've said that the federal health care plan for government employees is a pretty good plan.
It is.
And Congress has voted, to my understanding, not to join the public plan once it passes because they want to keep their good federal plan. Would you be willing to either urge Congress to have the federal employees join the public plan, or would you be willing to urge Congress to somehow open up the federal health plan to all Americans?
Thank you, Ernie. I hear this all the time, Mr. President.
Well, it's a great question, Ernie. First of all, understand that currently federal employees have a very good health care plan because they're able to leverage the insurance companies. There's so many members of their of the federal workforce that they can get the best rates possible. For every insurance company wants to do business with the federal government. So premiums are lower and it's a better deal overall. The same concept is what we're trying to do in setting up what's called a health insurance exchange. Essentially, it'd be a marketplace where people who currently don't have health insurance or small businesses could pool their numbers so they have leverage over the insurance companies, and they could go on a website and look at the various options, the types of various private health insurance plans that are being offered, and choose the one that's best for their families. So we're actually trying to duplicate what exists for federal employees. We want to make that available to everybody else. Now, what we have said is let's make a public option one choice of many choices that are available to people who are joining the exchange. And I see nothing wrong with potentially having that public option as one option for federal employees as well. But the important thing that I think I have to make absolutely clear, nobody would be obligated to choose the public option. If you went on that website and you said, you know what, Aetna or Blue Cross Blue Shield are often offering a good deal, and I would rather choose that plan than the public plan, you'd be perfectly free to do so. Nobody would be saying you are obligated to go into a public plan.
I think what folks are saying is that they'd love it if you'd stand up and say, whatever it is that we're creating, be it a co-op, be it a public option, whatever name ultimately might be ascribed to it, we in the executive branch, we in the Congress, we will live with exactly these parameters.
I think it would make perfect sense for us to make the public option available to federal employees as well. But keep in mind, it would just be a choice.
Understood. Let me keep moving if I may. Tracy listens on WXNT News Talk 1430 in Indianapolis. Tracy, your question for the President.
Mr. President, thanks for taking my call.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi. Until I heard you say that a private option is just a sliver of your health care proposal recently, I think myself and many Americans thought that pretty much was your proposal.
I know.
So my question is, could you please quickly list 5 or 6 bullet points of what legislation must include for you to be willing to sign it? For instance, employer mandates,
right.
Tort reform, illegal immigrants, what about them? Must include a public option.
I'd be happy to. First of all, you mentioned illegal immigrants. This has been an example of just pure misinformation out there. None of the bills that have been voted on in Congress and none of the proposals coming out of the White House propose giving coverage to illegal immigrants. None of them. That has never been on the table. Nobody has discussed it. So everybody who's listening out there, when you start hearing that somehow this is all designed to provide health insurance to illegal immigrants, that is simply not true and has never been the case.
What is their fate, if I might ask? Because there's a 1986 law in the book that says if you show up at an ER, you've got to be treated.
Well, that will continue because we don't want a situation in which some child, even if they're illegal immigrant, shows up in an emergency room with tuberculosis and nobody's giving them treatment, and then they're going back to the playground and playing next to our kids. So I think there is a basic standard of decency where if somebody's in a death situation or a severe illness, that we're going to provide them emergency care. but nobody has talked about providing health insurance to illegal immigrants. I want to make that absolutely clear. Now, Tracy, you had a good point about what are the bullet points that I want. Number one, it's got to be deficit neutral. This has to be paid for, because in the past, some of the health care plans that we put forward have not been paid for. A good example of this was the prescription drug benefit for seniors. That was an important thing to do, but we never actually figured out how to pay for it. That just went directly into the deficit and the national debt. We can't afford to do that. So that'd be point number one. Point number two, it has to bend the cost curve. What that means is that we've got to create a plan that experts credibly say will reduce health care inflation. Because if all we're doing is adding more people, but we're not controlling costs, that will blow up the deficit over the long term, and it will blow up the burdens on individual families and businesses. We've got to get control of our costs. We spend $6,000 more than any other advanced country per person on health care. That's number two. Number three, we've got to have the insurance reforms I talked about for people who already have health insurance. And that means making sure you can get health insurance even if you've got a pre-existing condition, making sure that you're not burdened by lifetime caps, making sure that insurance companies can't drop you just because you get sick or because you're older or because you're not as healthy. So making sure that there are basic insurance protections, that's very important. Number four is I want to make sure that we have a health exchange, as I just described, that is similar to what members of Congress have, where you will have a set of options. If you're a small business, if you're an individual, self-employed, you have trouble getting health insurance right now, you can go and look at a bunch of options, and we've got to make it affordable for middle-class families. So part of the plan has to be that if you can't afford a market-based premium, that we're giving you a little bit of help and you're able to get health insurance. Choice, competition, reducing costs, those are the things that I want to see accomplished in this health reform bill.